This is Sarah Paulson, because Ryan Murphy sticks Sarah Paulson in everything, as the title character Mildred Ratched. You don't actually, there's not a lot of, plot here that you need to set up.
She goes to be a nurse at a hospital in sort of a mental institution, really, the Lucia State Hospital. She sort of blackmails her way onto the staff, sets herself up to look good in the eyes of the doctor, and just happens to be the time where the state governor is visiting the institution, and she sets herself up to save the life of a priest who's one of the patients. She also convinces a patient to commit suicide, and this sets it up to the story that we saw played out in the opening scenes, where a young man butchers a house full of priests because he is the son of the Monsignor who took advantage of his mother when she was a nun, and he wanted revenge, and rather than being arrested, he is being institutionalized in this hospital. And the final scene of episode 1 is that there's a connection there between Ratched and this prisoner. We've also got Judy Davis playing the almost like the matron character, I suppose, of the mental institution, and Cynthia Nixon, who plays a like a motel owner.
Yeah.
That's the basic setup, I suppose, of this, and this is several decades before we see Mildred Ratched presiding over another. I don't know if it's the same mental institution as the one in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but in that she's very passive aggressive towards the patients, has this cat and mouse game with the Jack Nicholson character. The nearest we get is her emotionally manipulating one of the characters played by Brad Dourif in the film to take his own life, which is the catalyst for the final scene in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But here you literally see her say, "Oh, the doctor's got an envelope opener in his office. Go slit your throat with it." That sort of thing.
Why didn't you get that role?
Yeah. Well, I did audition, but Ryan Murphy already had that inbuilt relationship with Sarah Paulson, so
That's what they told you at the time.
And I suppose this is very much on the American Horror Story end of the Ryan Murphy verse, as opposed to the Assassination of Versace Pose end of the Ryan Murphy spectrum.
What I would say about Ryan Murphy's shows, if you get a new telly, they're a great way to work out whether you've got your colour up to.
Yeah, the contrast. Get that contrast button.
Yeah, there's too much green there. No, I like the blue, but the green's a little bit overpowering and the yellow's too much. I feel like with Ryan Murphy shows, particularly the ones he's done for Netflix, so we reviewed Hollywood, that we didn't really either care for or understand. The Politician we felt very similar about. I feel like he puts you in a world that's almost overwhelming, and your job is to see the show behind all the Ryan Murphy-ness, if you like. And if, like me, you can't turn your aversion to the Ryan Murphy-ness off, then the show that's hidden inside it is harder to find. If that makes any sense at all.
Not really, Luke.
No,
a little
it
bit.
Makes complete sense to me. There's a show in there, but it's so overwhelmed by so much other stuff that I can't see. I need everything to calm down, put on some grey, and just let.
It's not got that, but yeah, it's as far away from the British kitchen sink drama. It's an over stylized graphic novel-esque version.
It's like a comic.
This is very much, I think, for fans who love the American Horror Story strand rather than the American crime story.
This is like a comic that's come to life.
Yeah.
This is like Brian Fuller's Pushing Daisies, but turned up to 11.
It's very Brian Fuller-esque. The colour palette is incredibly stark. I can see this winning the Emmy next year for Best Costumes. Everyone is sort of styled to within an inch of their life. I'm going to use a Luke phrase here. There's not a character you can really hang your hat on, as you would say.
Do I normally hang hats on characters?
Yes, you do say that. Having gone through a lot of your token phrases from the last few years while editing together these YouTube
Thank
videos.
you for that.
You haven't used the phrase "run me through the basic building blocks" of this in anything
That's
yet.
because I've done most of the building
Yeah,
blocks here
yeah.
this week.
There's very little subtlety, which I know again you're a big fan of.
And I just wanted to turn it down a bit. It was just an assault on my senses.
Yeah, and they had like the music they used at one point was very much the music from. Well, no, it was the music that they used in the Cape Fear episode of The Simpsons.
I know that. No, I kept wanting to see Love and Hat on her knuckles. Hit by a load of rakes or something.
Yeah, there's the scene when she steps into the motel and she just steps on a load of rakes.
That would have perked it up for me.
Yeah,
no, but I struggled to see the show behind all the
Mm.
razzmatazz. The opening sequence with the priest getting murdered and brutalized, and that had me interested and on the edge of my seat, but it was still too comic book-esque. And I think there are those people that can just say, this is ridiculous, but I love it for that. And there have been things that I've watched and gone, it's ridiculous, but I'm still invested.
I just think it was all so, yeah, again, like that word heightened, you know, it was all so big, and all the dialogue was just people sniping at each other, wasn't it? You know, it was Cynthia Nixon sniping at Sarah Paulson, it was Judy Davis sniping at Sarah Paulson. I suppose it never sort of settled into itself, and I think again that's the thing with the Netflix series, that they want you to watch all 8, don't they? This is the thing. People will be watching this on Netflix over the weekend. The next episode will be automatically playing and they'll just be sitting on the sofa. You know, when Sophie was on with us talking, and I saw her on Twitter as well, bemoaning the fact that people will just go to whatever is on Netflix, and I'm assuming people will have watched all of this by the time they listen to this review, because that is a lot of people's schedules, is what's new on Netflix this weekend, let's watch that.
I just needed it to slow down, quiet down, let me see how invested I could get in the story without the flashiness of it. And I get that that's Ryan Murphy's thing. He's been very successful at it. He's worth millions. He's done more shows than I could even list. But I feel like Netflix, they buy the creators. They don't buy the shows, they buy the creators. And so it gives them a lot of free will just to do whatever the devil they want to do. And that's not necessarily a good thing. You know, I know I know you like Feud more than I did.
I didn't love it. I have to say, I think he gets good actors to come and work with him. I think that's part of the thing. Like, actors want to work with Ryan Murphy. Being in his shows normally gets you some awards buzz, especially in the crime story ones.
But it's interesting that we're talking more about Ryan Murphy than we are about the show and the performances in it.
We both really like Sarah Paulson. I think in the O.J. Simpson series, she was one of the highlights there, and her episode in Mrs. America, because she is the sort of devout acolyte of Phyllis Schlafly, and again, maybe we'll talk about this when you've watched more of it. It's an episode where she learns that maybe some of the things that Phyllis has been preaching for years, when she goes as a representative to this sort of women's conference, isn't as sort of black and white as she first thought it was. So her performance in that allows her to have a lot more subtlety than Nurse Ratched does here. And, you know, she's one of Ryan Murphy's players, isn't she? She has been in, I believe, in most of the crime stories.
Yeah.
And
no, she's definitely
the horror stories. Sorry, the horror stories. Yeah. Is she due to be in the third crime story?
Probably.
I thought she was playing Hillary Clinton. No.
Let's use the internet.
I think if you like those, like the American Horror Stories, this might be up your alley. But I think for people like us who enjoy a bit more
and a bit more depth,
then give it a go. But I don't think you are going to be as impressed. And Sarah Paulson is playing Linda Tripp in.
Yeah, I just found this out, Matt. She's playing Linda Tripp in American. It's voice in my ear just said it.
It's got a good cast, actually. Margot Martindale, Betty Gilpin, Beanie Feldstein. Should we just watch that?
Watch that instead, yeah.